Hey everybody, it's Black Spring, and I am bringing you a bit of a rally. It's also an update to the Senate stimulus package. Well, it seems like the numbers are a bit on the rise, or I get a bit of a swell, and it'll be very interesting to take a look at what that entails. So I'd like to bring you the story, and that will come from our very vetted source, the TNA, the New American. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me here on this segment of Black Spring. If you're new here, welcome, and let's begin. Now, this is our vetted source, the TNA, the New American, and this particular story was, or article was written on Saturday, March 21st, 2020. Here, this article is entitled, "The Senate Pandemic Stimulus Swells to $2 trillion. The final vote on Monday." Now, this is written by Christian Gomez. So let's begin. The U.S. Senate's $1 trillion stimulus bailout to alleviate the economic fallout from the CCP pandemic will likely exceed $2 trillion. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow told reporters on Saturday the bill, Kudlow explained, would be equal to roughly 10% of the nation's economic output and is double the nearly $1 trillion bloated bailout that President Trump initially requested. White House Director of Legislative Affairs, Eric Uland, told reporters that the $2 trillion reflects the, quote, net impact of everything. Quote, there is a direct appropriations, which right now we're talking about over $1 trillion, end quote. Uland continued, quote, that in partnership with the Federal Reserve can bring much more significant fiscal heft, end quote. Uland further explained that under the bill, as it stands now, the Federal Reserve would put out $700 billion in the form of grants and loans. Quote, we're just trying to cover the right basis, end quote, Kudlow said, in justifying what would by far be the nation's largest bailout package in history. Kudlow also told reporters that small businesses would also receive a payroll tax holiday. The bill, known as, quote, the Pandemic Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or the, quote, CARES Act, end quote, would also authorize at least $500 billion in direct payment, rebate checks to individual taxpayers, providing $1,200 for individual adults, $2,400 for married couples, and $500 for each child in a household. The payments would begin to phase out a $75,000 in adjusted gross income based on the 2018 tax returns. As of Friday, the Senate bill also included establishing a $50 billion lending program for the airline industry, $8 billion for cargo air carriers, and an additional $150 billion in secured loans for other distressed business sectors, and $300 billion in forgivable bridge loans for small businesses. However, on Saturday, Senate Banking Committee Chairman Mike Crapo, Republican of Idaho, claimed that the airline industry needed a bigger bailout. Crapo also told reporters that an appropriation of somewhere between $300 billion to $500 billion would be needed to jumpstart the Fed's ability to maintain liquidity in the financial markets, the Hill reports. As of Saturday evening, support has also broadened for increasing the $300 billion in forgivable bridge loans to small businesses to at least $350 billion. Late Saturday evening, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, said that the Senate is, quote, poised to deliver the significant relief that Americans need with the speed that this crisis demands, end quote. McConnell also said that he has instructed committee chairmen to draft a final legislative text, which he expects the Senate to have a final vote on Monday. Politico reports that Uland said McConnell has, quote, instructed his committees to finish drafting legislation that reflects agreements reached so far, and where the chairman and the majority believe the Democrats could be in a position to support by the time the vote occurs, end quote. Adding, it's critically important that Congress be in a position to act for the American people and the American economy on Monday, end quote. Democrats have already made some early legislative victories in further ballooning the bill, including tens of billions of dollars for hospitals and healthcare workers, and increasing the total amount in direct payments to Americans by an additional $250 billion. Quote, the Democrats are getting some of the things they've asked for, end quote. Senate Majority Whip John Thune, a Republican of South Dakota, told reporters on Saturday after leaving from a closed-door GOP luncheon, quote, they're getting what they wanted, unemployment insurance. On Sunday at 11 a.m. local time, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat of New York, House Speaker Pelosi, a Democrat of California, and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Republican of California, are scheduled to meet with McConnell in his office to further discuss the text of the bill before holding a procedure vote on the bill later in the day. Thank you so much for tuning in to the segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have a few things going on here. It seems it's a bit of a rally, and it seems that it almost seems like we're at an appeasement issue with the Democrats. If they're not, they're saying this is about, they're encouraging more funding for actual unemployment benefits. It's just, to me, it's beginning to be a bit of a pork and barrel type of act or type of bill that's coming up. Not to mention, overall, we have a fiscally irresponsible Congress. So I'm not really sure. This bill, to me, it's like if these petulant globalist Democrats don't get what they want, who knew that they were even still rallying or still going back or still negotiating to spend more money on this actual bill? And it's just there's just more conditioning. Their signature is always tethered to some form of socialism or just excessive. Every single component of this particular bill is swelling. And then the fact that the airline industry, you have CEOs that make millions of dollars a year. They're asking for bigger bailouts. So it's a question of fiscal responsibility, which this Congress is a pretty low rate. And I would say that on a bipartisan level, that is also between the Democrats as well as the Republicans. They both are pretty well not operating and upholding their oath of office, and certainly not to the Constitution. We could break that down. We could play that out in terms of actual individual profiles, and then just overall a Congress with an overall percentage of upholding their constitutional oath of office at 34%. So this crisis is, it's, to me, it looks like another opportunity for the left or the Democrats to fill it with pork or whatever, or they're trying to protect their own interests, which are rarely American and rarely about the individual. They're looking for loopholes to further their own agenda. And that is a minus on the fiscal responsibility. So that's my particular take. I do understand that this is an extraordinary crisis that needs a response, but an appeasement or to fill it with pork it's not constitutional, to say the least. And we will be, every time we add more loans, and we're dealing with the Federal Reserve, we're just tightening, we're just extending this debt to generations and generations and generations. We already have a roughly $23 trillion debt, and excuse me, we need to rein things in and not allow one side of the Congress to bloat and pork, filibuster, and rally in a time of crisis. And it kind of brings me back to something that I say regularly, you know, Rahm Emanuel, never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's exactly what I see happening here. But it's a debt and a fiscal irresponsibility that generations of Americans will pay for. So please let me know what you think in the comments, what your concerns are, if you like, if you don't like. It's all feedback, and I really appreciate your comments and concerns, but please let me know, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in for this segment of Black Spring. I hope you're having a great Sunday. Take care.